banks do not want to lend money to pay off debt.
Right.
That's an absolute like kick you out, even though you might be showing great forecasts and the ability to repay the loan. You've got to show you're using the money in some way that's going to build the business.
This is the Angel Next Door podcast, where we will talk about all things angel investing. What it is, who does it, how do we find them, what does it mean to invest in an early stage company? If you have ever wondered how you can affect the change you want to see in the world, then tune in to learn more. In this episode, I'm talking with Corinne Goble, CEO of the Association of Women's Business Centers, for an insightful and inspiring conversation about how the association has tools to empower all entrepreneurs. Corinne shares her fascinating journey growing up in her mom's trucking business, navigating male-dominated industries, and leading efforts to make resources and funding more accessible for all small business owners. Listen in as she demystifies technical assistance and SBA loans, explains how her organization supports founders from idea to scale, and reveals simple steps for accessing free tools and expert help. Plus, discover why growing wealth isn't just about moving money. It's about creating new opportunities for everyone. Enjoy the show. Corinne, welcome to the Angel Next Door podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Marcia.
Yeah, I'm excited for our conversation today and all the things that you're doing. My goodness, so many ways that you're helping entrepreneurs and early businesses. And so start us off, tell us a little bit about your background and more about the Women's Business Centers.
Yeah, sure. Well, a little bit about me and how I got interested in this space. My mom was a business owner. In fact, she opened her business the same year I was born. So in 1978, she opened a trucking company in Western Michigan, which is a very male-dominated industry and in an area of the country and at a time when influence was at its kind of strongest and most machismo, think like the Jimmy Hoffa era there in Detroit. And the reason why that all came to play is because some of the biggest customers were automotive companies. And so my mom was playing this business game in a very male-dominated, very interesting environment. And it came to play out in some of challenges that she had in business. But I grew up in that business. Like, I think I spent more time in the dispatcher's office than I ever did at home in the living room because my mom was at work and I was at work with her. And I didn't know any other way than just business is our family and our family is our business. And so I went away to college, but came back. I didn't finish grad school. I came back right after the September 11 chaos. I was in DC doing grad school and my mom's business was in trouble. And my grandma, who also worked at the business, she said, "We need you back here. We're scared. We want you home. The business needs you." And so I quit school and I went back home. And I'm glad I did. I helped my mom embrace some technology that we needed in the trucking company. And we went from losing money to making a really nice profit again. And I learned a lot in that turnaround, the whole process of that. And then she sold her business. And so I was like a free agent and I moved south to better weather and then ended up working in the credit union industry for a little while. And then I worked for Kia Motors, spent 10 years in the kind of manufacturing administration side. And then I had my own business somewhere in there. And then I came into the Association of Women's Business Centers in January of 2019, just long enough to get situated before we had the COVID pandemic hit and small business owners, Main Street really called on us in that moment of crisis. And so it's been a wild ride, but I guess the best thing about that experience is it's really kept me close to small business throughout my entire journey. And now I get to be on this end here with Women's Business Centers. At the association, we support them, this network of 150 nonprofit organizations around the country, partially federal funded, partially private funded. We support them as they're supporting business owners, whether these are startups or business owners trying to scale. Typically, what they're all asking for is the same thing: money. They need money to get started and they need money to grow. And so we've been building out our toolkit and support to try to help women's business centers help business owners. And then we're also here answering the door. Business owners find us, knock on the door, and they say, "Can you help us?" And so we've built toolkits out for them and then can refer them to women's business centers if there's one in their area.
So the Women's Business Centers are all nonprofits and you're helping mainly for-profit businesses or both?
Yeah, I've got a dual identity. On one hand, we exist to support these nonprofits that are all helping business owners. And back in 2022, we took on this additional initiative and said, if we're going to really make a dent in the female participation in the economy through business, then we need to be able to answer the door when they knock. And we just weren't able to before. And so now we also support for-profit businesses and not just women. No matter who knocks on the door, we'll answer.
Nice. So tell us about all of those divisions. One's called Hope to Women, right?
Yeah, we started all these brands because we knew that we were gonna be appealing to people in different segments in different ways. And so the first way we showed up was for women, and that's through a brand we call Hope to Women. It's Hope, the number 2, and then women.org. And Hope stands for helping others by promoting entrepreneurship because we know that helping women helps this entire economy. We're not trying to take economic activity from one segment and transfer it to another. We're trying to grow net new wealth and grow the economy. And that grows the American competitiveness. It grows our global economy, and I think it's good for everyone. So at Hope to Women, this is where women will find us and say, I'm trying to start a business or I'm trying to grow a business. Can you help us? And so we ask everyone to submit a request for assistance form. We collect some basic data so that we know what they need and where they are. And then everybody gets a 15-minute free consultation. We want to give that face to face because sometimes they've submitted an inquiry, but they weren't serious. But if they show up to that 15-minute meeting, now we know they're serious and they're taking steps in their journey. And then we can route them to all different types of resources. But we mapped a similar journey for veterans. So we have this other brand called veteransstartup.org. All of basically the same resources, but geared a little bit differently toward the veteran community. And then we have this like for everybody else. If you don't fit those 2 criteria, you might be more comfortable finding us through Biz to Grow. And that's biz, the number 2, grow.org. And again, it's essentially all the same journey, no matter who the business owner is. It's just finding the place where they feel comfortable and like encouraged and invited to participate.
Hmm. So I love what you were talking about before with that you're not necessarily just trying to transfer money or opportunity or whatever it is, but that you're actually trying to grow it. And the more that we have women and underrepresented people participating, and really everyone participating, we can actually grow our economy as opposed to just moving it around. Because we've talked a lot about how the great wealth transfer is coming and women are going to come into all of this money. And what are we going to do? And I'm really curious about the actual economic implications of that because are we essentially moving the money around, or are we actually giving women an opportunity for them to put their money to work and grow it? What are your
Yeah, yeah, we have to be good stewards of our resources, whether it's been handed to us or whether we had to grow it ourselves. And so, if the great wealth transfer is happening, and I've seen a lot of data that can women steward and shepherd those resources effectively? I don't know, but that's what technical assistance means. When we say in our world of entrepreneurship support, it's how to technically help you with your money. How are you going to help that money grow additional wealth? And so, yeah, maybe that's an opportunity with a wealth transfer to turn money into more money and not just for the sake of being greedy or just trying to get more and more, but for the sake of that generational wealth. And like the title of the book behind you, Do Good, Doing Well. The interesting thing about women that I do think differentiates women is they tend to be so mission or purpose driven. And so with that additional wealth, what good are we going to do with it? And how can this growing of wealth help us do more of it?
I love how you are so data driven with things. And the fact that you just brought up technical assistance, sometimes when I hear the term technical assistance, I think it means that you're going to help me with my tech stuff. So I love how you're explaining exactly how that works in the world of helping entrepreneurs. Tell us more.
That the jargon that we have in this entrepreneurship support lane boggles my mind because no one gets it except for us on the service provider end, but we tend to use the language as if our customers, our business owners actually understand it. They don't. And I don't want them to have to do that. Just going back to the word capital. And this is sometimes like the opening of some, if I get to do a keynote somewhere, and this spoils like any future invitations, but sometimes I'll open and say, does anybody even know where this term capital came from? And why are we using that word when what we really just mean is money? Like, why aren't we
Mhm.
just saying money when that's what we need to start a business? And, it goes back to economics. And I think this jargon, climate, and that environment, I think it helps protect this industry from people who are trying to fake it. So being data backed and using the right language, I think is important. But at the same time, I think we have to be mindful that people we're talking to don't necessarily speak the same language. They're just trying to do business and their language of business can be very different.
You bring up such a good point, and you're right. The word capital is a great example. We throw it around like capital expenditures and these type of big words that we put together, and it's, do we really need that? Before we went live, we were talking about the SBA and how that all works. And I know there's a lot of kind of tricks and turns that some entrepreneurs have to go through in order to be able to see what is it that they're eligible for, what is it that the SBA offers. Because we've talked a lot on the show before about the SBA, and they do some amazing things to help people. But again, back to the jargon, and sometimes there's a little bit of a tricky road to get there. Tell us a little bit about how you help entrepreneurs with that.
Yeah, the tricks and the turns and the hidden pieces of this, that's the mystery behind the loans. I really believe that every loan officer must have on paper, like taped to their cubicle wall or sticky notes plastered around their monitor, like they know exactly the criteria they're looking for on paper before they're going to make a loan. And they're not a loan officer. Typically, they're going to be paid by commission. They're going to make money when they can do a deal. They want to get to a deal quickly. And the sooner that they can kick a candidate out, the quicker they're going to stop wasting their own time. In my experience, so many loan officers that do SBA loans are looking for that first place that business might fall out of the lendable criteria. Whereas we at Hope to Women and Veteran Startup and Biz to Grow, we are trying to find how can we do the deal, not how can we not do the deal. So we have to have the lens how to overcome any of these things that are going to kick them out. So we have to know what they are, but they're not always easy to know. The loan officer knows, but they're not going to tell you anybody with a credit score under 680, they're kicking out. I just randomly chose that. I think there are different credit scores for different loan officers because there's a different comfort level that they're going to have that this deal is going to be a deal they're going to be able to close. And then, that's not going to default on them. So one of the, I think, challenging parts for business owners and for us who are trying to shepherd clients through the journey is that it's actually not cut and dry anywhere. We can't ever know exactly what it is a credit score cutoff that's going to kick you out or keep you in. What's going to be the revenue that you need to show on paper or you're going to need to forecast to make this deal look appealing to the bank? What do you need to change in your business plan and how you're going to operate to generate those returns? Again, it's a mystery. And so that's the art of it, is through this journey, we've learned our different banking partners, where their appetite is, and we help clients try to package the best possible deal so that the loan officer doesn't have a reason to kick them out. But every day's challenging, and sometimes it's the intangibles that we're trying to coach the client, because we know it can even be those intangibles that makes the loan officer feel not comfortable to try to do the deal.
And when you say intangibles, what are some examples?
Examples could be on paper, the business has performed well and has a great forecast, and the business owner or owners have great credit scores, but they might not be able to present their case well. They may not be able to just say how they're planning to use this particular money to grow their business. Banks do not want to lend money to pay off debt.
Right.
That's an absolute kick. Even though you might be showing great forecasts and the ability to repay the loan, you've got to show you're using the money in some way that's going to build the business. And so if you can't show it, you can't talk about it, and you can't sell it, and they don't believe you, they're not going to believe whatever's on paper either. So I think that's that intangible.
Mm-hmm. Now, you have a pretty wide network through the association and then all of these other brands that you're building. Tell us a little bit about how that's been able to help the entrepreneurs.
Well, gosh, I think all of us are only as good as the network we have. When we talk about underrepresented and under-resourced, I think of a business owner who's just under-networked, who doesn't have connections, the connections to the lenders, the advisors, funders, customers. I always talk about the bail team, and this is just such old, outdated, probably advice to have your banker, your accountant, your insurance agent, and your lawyer as your closest business associates. But if that's the core of that network, and then being able to expand that network to other types of resources that you might need, it's critical. So we're national. We've got a national network. We have women's business centers embedded in these local communities with connections to local resources. And then we've got connections at the state level, and then of course at the federal level too. So if we wind up with a business owner who's struggling with a particular barrier, we may be able to go further than just local resources and take it all the way back to, say, a federal agency if we need to really find the answer or to break through. Do we have time to help everybody through all of their barriers? It depends. But if the business owner is willing to do their share of the work, we're going to be there to help them.
I love that. So if someone has an idea for a business and they've put all their stuff together as far as put it on paper, try to figure out what their plan could be, they could come to you and find a way to then take it to the next step, how to actually form the business plan, how to get a loan if they need it, all of those things. Is that really the path?
That's definitely the path, whether it's Hope to Women or Biz to Grow or whatever, the front door. You walk in that front door and the first thing you get is access to resources. You mentioned business plan. We have a business plan that's an actual, for a fee, subscription business plan tool that is available free, just at least for a limited time, coming through our front door. We think that business planning tool is critical. And the most important part of the business plan is the forecast. Getting all of the information out on paper so that you can be informed when you're building out the financial section. And that's the section most people tend to not do at all. And that's really the only thing that matters, because if you're not in business to make money, then you shouldn't be there at all. And so you need to make sure your plan has captured all of these financial expense categories, as well as where your potential revenue could come from. And if it's not going to flow and look like revenue for you, don't do it, because even if it's a nonprofit, you have to have some net income at the end of the day. So if you can't make money doing it, just don't.
Exactly. Well, I love what you're doing, helping all of these different entrepreneurs. I'm curious, you talked about your background. So your mom had this trucking company. You ended up working for Kia, very male-dominated industries. And what do you think that you learned from all that you've now brought into this new endeavor?
It's not really
Oof.
new anymore.
Confidence is so important in our work. And I don't mean arrogance, and I don't mean like a false sense of confidence or faking it. It can't be just a shell. Or I think we've met people who are like tender emotionally inside, but they've got this hard shell on the outside, and you can tell that's not genuine.
Mm.
But confidence that comes from data, we talked about knowing your information and standing on firm ground, like really being the expert in your area, and then being confident about it. If you're confident, no one's going to question you about, do you really know what you're doing? Well, obviously, because you're showing up in an unquestionable kind of way. I've learned a lot about that, both watching my mom be very feminine in a male dominated environment. She wore high heels and a skirt suit and full makeup, and like she walked into rooms where she was the only woman. And it was back when they smoked cigarettes in meetings. And it was like she definitely stood out in her bright red lipstick and like she did her acrylic nails back then. I saw her be feminine and be confident and not be questioned for her expertise. Sometimes she wasn't always respected, but she couldn't control that. At least she knew her business and she knew she had her own integrity there. So I've just carried that with me all the way through. I sat across from a man from another country in a business meeting one day, and I was presenting on a topic that I had been researching for months. And once I presented all of the details, and I'm talking really technical details, the male in the meeting, and he said, "Do you even know what we're talking about?" Only to knock me off of my perch. Obviously, I knew all of the details. I had presented them, but that was just to try to see if I would shake. There's a lot of posturing that happens. And I don't see that he did that because I was a woman. I think he would have very easily done that to a man just to try to challenge. Do they
Mm.
really know what they're talking about? Are they coming here faking it, or are they really true and genuine and confident in their information? And so I'll never forget that. I'm glad that happened in that meeting that time. And now I'm ready for it if it ever happens again. And so just being prepared and being confident, I think, is the most important thing.
And knowing your data, right? That's super important. So, Corinne, where can people find you? Where would they go to get help if they're out there thinking that, yeah, I think I want to start a business?
I would send them, male or woman, just for ease, and I would say go to hopetowomen.org, hope with the number.org, and poke around. There's some good, if someone's just wanting to kick the tires, we've got a lot of free training and classes up there. We've also got access to additional education for someone who they want a certificate in coding or AI. You can actually, through our website, we've got access to a lot of stuff that's free that you'd have to pay going somewhere else. I think it's definitely worth exploring. And even if you're in business and you're just ready to scale it, we've got a special suite of resources and expertise and a desire to help as well. So you can, once you get into the website, you can poke around, look at the resources, or you can fill out a request for assistance, and that gets you time with one of us. And that's when the real magic happens.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I'm so glad we got to have this conversation today and learn more about all of the resources that are out there. And we're always trying to help entrepreneurs get to make the innovation and make those things come to life that we all want to see in the world. So thanks for joining today.
Thanks, Marcia. It was great to be with you.
Thanks for listening. To connect with me, visit my website at marciadawood.com. And please subscribe, follow, and leave a review. It helps the podcast get seen by more people. And remember, you can also find the Angel Next Door podcast on YouTube too. And if you're looking to learn more about investing in the changes you want to see in the world, sign up for Ann and Bill Payne's ACA Angel University classes. Go to theangelcapitalassociation.org, all one word, to find out the schedule. And classes are now available on demand. Many classes are offered, everything from angel investing basics, which include fundamentals, risk, due diligence, term sheets, valuations, returns and portfolio strategy, and even a class on group formation. There's even a deeper dive where you can get advanced classes, including capitalization tables, startup boards, and exit strategies. If you're not already a member of the Angel Capital Association, you can become one for a low price that will give you unparalleled access to discounts, free webinars with a huge archive of content, networking opportunities, and much more. We'd love to have you join us. All content for this website is informational and not intended to serve as legal, tax, accounting, or investing advice. Well, Marcia, that's me, does serve on the SEC Small Business Capital Formation Advisory Committee. My views are my own and not the views of the SEC or my fellow colleagues on the committee. Our speakers and hosts are thoughtfully selected for their educational value, but their opinions are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of the host, me, or the Angel Capital Association, and neither specifically endorse the use of presenters' products or services. Listeners of the podcast should consult their own tax, investing, legal, or accounting advisors before making important financial decisions. All warranties, including accuracy, completeness, and suitability for specific purpose, are disclaimed.